Welcome back to Unsolicited Advice, brought to you by Toxic Bubblegum. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And today we're talking about character goodbyes.
Yes.
Saying goodbye to characters. Saying au revoir to characters.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a quote.
Yes. What a terrible thing it is to botch a farewell.
That's by Jan Martel from Life of Pi.
Yeah.
Oh. It's not a Game of Thrones.
It's not a Game of Thrones quote. I wanted to so bad.
I know you did. You always do.
But we've got our media segments for that.
But yes, so part one, we're just talking about different ends for a character, because there are different things you can do with them.
Yeah.
So whether it's death, retirement, ascension into some sort of eldritch monster, I wonder who would do that.
Me.
Oh, damn
Now.
it, cat!
Goodbye, guys.
Oh, no. This always happens to me.
Yeah.
How's it going, dude?
Great.
Okay. Or just parting ways from your narrative. Saying goodbye to your beloved characters is one of the necessary evils of storytelling. I'm scared, guys. I'm friggin'. Honestly, honest to God, scared.
Today, we'll be talking about how, when, and why you should part ways with your original characters across a variety of mediums. If you're a plotter, you already know when to do that because it's whatever your outline says to. But if you're the kind of person who likes to wing rough drafts or are working in any kind of improvised field, like role-playing, which we talked about in our pre-show, then you might have more trouble deciding when to do it, which is where we come in with advice.
And so just a small disclaimer, pretty big disclaimer.
Yeah.
Actually, we can only really scratch the surface of everything in this topic because there is a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just going to cover the basics of parting ways that you may or may not have grown too fond of. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but we're just going to cover the very, very basics.
Yeah. Give you a few pointers, because once you know the basics of stuff, you can figure out the rest.
On your own.
Yeah. So, we're going to be talking about, part 2, we're going to be talking about when to say bye to a character, and figuring out when that time might be.
Mm-hmm.
As a creator, you have a sort of love-hate relationship with your audience. They love you, but chances are that they also love to hate you at times. Character departures are a great way to evoke feelings from either side of that coin, whether you want people to be elated or cursing you from behind a mountain of tissues. The main thing is that you want them to be satisfied.
And while writing off someone can be incredibly shocking, a good rule of thumb is that it shouldn't be your primary motivation. Deaths that are done just for shock value? That's
yes.
what I said, shock value, tend to have high initial impact but can fall flat with time. It can be great if a project surprises people, but anything that relies on shock value too heavily won't inspire people to revisit it.
That being said, there are plenty of good motivations on when to do it with a character, and we're going to go over a handful of the best times to give you a feel for whether or not it might be a good idea for you to do with some of your OCs.
And I know there are some of these that are, there's one in particular that can really go either way, which is actually the catalyst, which is the first point we're going to be talking about.
Nice.
So a character leaving or dying can often be used as a catalyst for your plot, setting something big in motion for the characters who are still there. This is one that I like to be careful with because it sort of, you can go a little too tropey with it. You often seen this with the woman in the refrigerator trope, where people kill off their single female character as inspiration for the male character to move forward. I hate it.
And then, as side note, because I actually just read, I think, maybe my first book where that trope was done well.
What?
And it was so effective.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and American Gods.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And it's brilliant. And also you should read it just for the Norse.
Well, you know how I like Norses.
Just because of the Loki.
You know I love Loki. You know I love a good Loke.
Loke is good.
Loke is good.
But yeah.
I'm gonna get that on t-shirt. So yeah, so I chose the most traumatizing death of anything I've read, which is Maze Hughes from Fullmetal Alchemist. I'm sorry, Kat. We had to do it. We had to talk about it. So for those of you who have not experienced this sad thing, Maze Hughes is a character that Edward and Alphonse meet, who is a member of the military, and he's just like this real sweet, excited dude who's really good at his job, and he like loves his family, and he's like one of the best characters you meet in the whole series, because he's just great. And then he finds out stuff that he shouldn't know, and he gets killed off. And it is the saddest shit. But it does serve as a catalyst, because it does really set in motion the whole political aspect of the story, of what's going on in the military and the conspiracies that are in there with the homunculus, and with the, everything that has to do there. And it's one of those things that really sticks with you, and, it sticks with the characters also. If I have to see Mustang crying in the rain one more time, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
Oh, God.
But, yeah, it's a very effective catalyst, because it sticks with you throughout the entire story, and it's just... No! Oh. But yeah, it's good. I'm getting a little bit teary-eyed.
Oh, God, yeah, sad.
But yeah, that's a really good example of a catalyst, because it's not used for shock value. It is a very shocking thing to happen, but, like, it really does push all the characters forward and instill more suspicion throughout the entire series.
Yeah, it served a higher plot purpose.
We have to move on.
Okay. The next thing, completion of a character arc. Sometimes you have a specific arc in mind for what you want a character to learn or accomplish. If that arc is completed, it could be time to let the character leave rather than risk them fizzling out or losing relevance. My example for this, I'm actually going to talk about Edmure Tully from Game of Thrones, if you can believe it.
I knew he was from Game of Thrones.
His name is Edmure.
Edmure.
What else would he be from? No, but Edmure Tully he's one of those... The Tullys get really overlooked in the show,
yes.
Especially, because the only Tully that you get, like, really close to is Catelyn, and she's already married. She's already a Stark at that point. Right. Yeah, it's easy to kind of forget that the Tullys are there, and Edmure was, like, the worst one, arguably. He's not good. But...
Gloves.
So it's one of those things. He was already kind of annoying. Robb Stark trusts him with a branch of the Northern Army, and he keeps making mistakes. Anytime they have, like, a bad strategy mistake, aside from breaking vows,
right,
Robb, it's something that Edmure has screwed up somehow.
Right.
He's bad. And he leaves the show he's one of the characters who just, like, leaves the show for several seasons in the middle without you ever finding out what happens to him in that break. Because he's the man who gets married at the Red Wedding. That's his wedding.
That's right.
Edmure Tully and Rosalind Frey.
That's right. That fucker.
And I think it's a really good example, because it's his wedding, and the Red Wedding is one of the most notorious episodes of any show ever. Like, you always hear about the Red Wedding, whether or not you watch the show or want to hear about it.
It's your turn to make me sad.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that. It's a really sad episode, and it was just tragic. In one episode, the North is taken out of the war.
Right.
annihilates one of the 5 people fighting in this war, who most everyone was rooting for,
right,
just about at that time. And it's like, and it was such an impactful episode. And it's the last time we see Edmure for, I think, 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see Edmure after that. And arguably no one cared.
Yeah.
Because, like, so many people died that you kind of assume that Edmure also died. And even though... And it was a good send-off, because you don't really find out what happens to him. But even though it's his wedding, none of it's really about him.
Right.
And he's not killed off there.
Mm-hmm.
He comes back in season 6 or 7. I think 6. He comes back in season 6 toward the very end. And they're like... because he had stuff to do that was relevant for the plot. But he didn't really have anything relevant to do in the meantime.
Right.
So they just, like, wrote him off of the show for the seasons that he didn't matter.
Right.
So it was, like, it was one of those things, it was kind of sad, because we didn't get to see any of the, like, character growth there.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, no one wanted to watch Edmure Tully get worse for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Because he was already so annoying, which was why he got them all there in the first place. And it was, like, it was a really good thing. And then, again... he came back, and it was fine that he'd been gone.
Right.
That was the correct thing to do. And he represented a lot of, like... he was kind of an important character for even as low of, impact as, like, he might have had on audiences. He reflected a lot of what was wrong with the Northern Army, and he was a really good metaphor for that. But when the Northern Army got absolutely decimated, we didn't need attention to be drawn to those points anymore.
Right, because now the North was out, more or less, things have changed.
Things have changed a lot. And he was he was a good representation of how quickly, his leaving was a good representation of how quickly things can fall off the map and be forgotten about, especially during, like, wars, so...
And now he's back. He's there.
And we didn't have to watch all of the stuff in between.
Thank God.
It wouldn't have been great. That would have been too much Edmure.
Even though probably could have done that in season 5. It was already bad.
Honestly, they should, if they had focused on Edmure that whole season and just come back to everybody else, it might have been just as good.
Right. It would have worked just as fine. Oh, season 5 was bad.
Yeah.
So the next point we have is, it's setting the stage. Sometimes one of the most interesting and intimate places for your protagonist to be is alone. That means everybody else has to go, even if it's only temporary. The goodbye should carry an appropriate sense of weight. I'm going to talk about One Piece. Again. Here we are. Ben, what have you done to me? This is all your fault. So there's an arc, in One Piece, called the Saba Odi Archipelago, where they get, to the end of the Grand Line, where they've been traveling and getting stronger, and they're about to go onto the next sea, which is the New World Sea, which is where pirate kings are made, more or less. And so they get here, and they get to this island, and they're, like, cocky and full of themselves, and because they are ridiculously strong, they've proven it time and time again, and then they get in trouble with the world leaders a little bit, like the royalties of the entire place. Luffy pisses them off, and so they get the admirals of the Navy called on them, and they get their asses kicked, like, real bad, and so they're all about to die, and then one of the warlords of the sea uses his devil fruit power to scatter the crew across the seas, and they all get pushed all these different places, and they're supposed to make a pact that they are supposed to come back to where they are after 3 days, to meet up again and then take on the new world. And that doesn't happen.
What?
So Luffy's on his own. There's a whole Isle of Women arc. That's definitely a thing that happens. But Luffy finds out that his brother is set to be executed.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, I gotta go deal with that real fast. It'll be fine. It'll be good. It is not fine or good. It's traumatizing. But so you've had this whole build up of the dynamic of Luffy and his crew, and suddenly Luffy is alone and has to be dealing with the pressures that he's been allowed to be ignorant to.
Mm-hmm.
Because suddenly he has to deal with his brother about to be executed and fighting all 7 warlords and the Navy and everything else. And so when all is said and done, his brother dies.
Mm-hmm.
Right in front of him. And it's real sad.
Yeah.
And so he goes into shock,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So he's able to get taken off the island, and they take him somewhere safe. And as he's recovering, he's having, like, a crisis of faith, where he's like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't save anyone. I can't be anything. He's died because of me. And so they snap him out. They're like, Luffy, shut up. Stop talking like that. Think about everything that you still have.
Yeah.
And so then we cut to a bunch of the other crewmates, and they're all like, hey, I'm sorry, we're here now, but we have to go. And they each have this individual scene on their own islands where they've been, and they're like, I have to go right now, I have to go back to my captain.
Mm-hmm.
And then they each get a newspaper. And on the newspaper, we see that Luffy has, like, gone back to the Marine Island and put on this big display. And on his arm, there's a tattoo. It's not a tattoo. It's like he wrote on his arm. And it has, it says 3D, which is crossed out, and then 2Y written under it, which is a message to his crew that instead of convening in 3 days, they're going to convene in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they're supposed to spend the rest of that time training. And it's this real big emotional thing, because they all want to get back together so badly,
Mm-hmm.
but they know that they can't. And so they all, like, make their promises to each other on their own islands that they're going to get stronger. And when they get back together, they're going to be the best pirate crew in the whole world. And I just finished that arc on Treasure Cruise, and I was like, oh. I knew it happened and everything like that, but it's like really seeing it play out and seeing all the emotion into it it was good.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things where each of them had to just leave for a while, but then that just made everyone coming back together all the sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Nice.
Still confused about the Island of Women thing. Again, kill Oda on sight. Twice if possible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So that's my real setting the stage, because that sets up the entire second half of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Also, is when they go into the new world and are fighting even bigger people. Literally. That's where Doflamingo is. He's really tall. He shouldn't be that tall. Why is he that tall? He's not a giant. I think there's another giant on that. What's going on, Cat?
You're
Explain
asking the wrong person.
One Piece to me.
Well, one guy's really tall. He shouldn't be that tall. Why is he that tall? He's not a giant.
That was perfect. That's everything I could ever ask for. One Piece. Now streaming on Funimation.
And our last point about when you should kill off a character is when... Are they a giant? Should they be a giant? No.
Should they? Shouldn't be that tall, that's for sure.
Our last, like, indicator / good rule of thumb of when you should do it is continuity / suspension of disbelief. Sometimes the plot leads you to a point where a character cannot come through the other side of a situation unchanged unchanged, or they're, like, it would change their character too much, and that's good sometimes because it's growth, and that's, you know, you want your characters to develop. But sometimes if it happens too suddenly, or you think your character would be like completely unrecognizable, it might be better to remove them from the situation, or let them remove themselves from the situation, if it's applicable.
Right.
So yeah, and I'm actually going to talk about Selyse. Selyse Baratheon, if you can imagine.
It's Game of Thrones again!
Less than a month.
I know. I know it's less than a month. She's shaking the bed.
I'm so excited and scared.
You should be.
But Selyse Baratheon, and this kind of, it also ties into the trope of, like, making a character feel alone. Because this was, her parting was what did that for Stannis. But I'm going to talk about her and why she removed herself from the situation.
Now, is that Stannis' wife?
Yes, Stannis' wife.
Got it.
So, she's not a likable woman on the show. She has taken up, she's following the Lord of Light, and it's a very harsh religion, and she's learning from Melisandre, who's like the harshest priestess of the religion. And she's not very likable. She has no sense of humor. She's overly devout. She's got like no kindness or sympathy for so many people. She sacrifices her own brother to the Lord of Light, because Melisandre's like, what if we did that? And she's like, I will do that, and he's going to be better for it, like, even though he's gone.
Right.
She's a very harsh, cold, unapologetic woman. There's really no redeeming qualities in Selyse Baratheon that we see on the show. Even though, like, she believes she's doing the right thing, and that's kind of like, she believes in the Lord of Light, she believes that her husband should be king, she believes that anything he does with Melisandre is for a higher purpose, and it's like, this is her core belief, and she doesn't, one of the other things that makes you really dislike her is she's mean to her daughter, Shireen Baratheon, who's like who's the sweetest character on the show. Without fail, sweetest character, Shireen Baratheon. And Selyse doesn't like her. She is the only daughter that Selyse she's the only child that Selyse is able to have, and she's got a facial deformity, so Selyse is just like, I can only bring my husband sickness, and like, I'm just gonna lock Shireen away so no one sees what a failure I am. And she's never kind to Shireen. She's always trying to get Stannis to banish her or send her away somewhere or leave her at home when they go travel, and she's like, Shireen can never do anything right. Selyse is a terrible mother and like a terrible person, honestly. But then Melisandre's like, I think that we should sacrifice Shireen to the Lord of Light. And Selyse, like, doesn't bat an eye. She's like, you know, Stannis has to win the army, and there's power in a king's blood, and if Lady Melisandre says to do it, do it. And then they show the day of her execution, of when they sacrifice Shireen. And and you can watch Stannis' men get so uncomfortable as they're, like, building the pyre and stuff. And Selyse is the only one who tries to stop it. Because she has a change of heart where she's like, I can't burn my only daughter alive. And she fights, and she's held back, and Shireen dies there. They light the fire, and it was, like, so Shireen's death was the one that was, like, really impactful. But at that point, it was, like, they were losing the war still, and Selyse had lost her only daughter. And even though it was, like, she hadn't cared about it up till that point, it's, like, the moment where you see that she cares about something, and she realizes she's made a mistake that she can't ever undo. And at that point, she stops caring about the Lord of Light, and she doesn't care if Stannis wins the war, and that's, like, how the episode ends. And then the next episode, we see that she's killed herself. They just find Selyse's body. And it was, like, it was really heartbreaking, because it's the first time that you care about Selyse, and she can't handle the change. Like, she can't try to make amends or do anything. She's just gone. And it was, like, it was really hard, because it really was, there was, like, no time of seeing her admit she was wrong.
Right.
And it left, like, such an impact. Because, like, you don't expect to care when Celise is dead, honestly, and then you do, and it, like, it snuck up on me really hard, because it was just like, oh, man.
Like, oh, fuck. Don't make me care.
Make me care about Celise Baratheon. But you do, and it's
but
like...
you do.
And it was... I think it was, like, the right call for the show. Because, like, she could have added an arc and, like, a development thing, but what you don't know is that Stannis does lose the war immediately after that, so it's like, she wouldn't really have had enough time to develop into that change. She would have just been, like, really sulky for a few episodes.
Right.
And then she would have died anyway. So it's like, from a storytelling perspective, it's like, it was better that she remove herself from the situation than not see that arc fully developed.
Right.
Because there wasn't enough time for it to be handled well. And it was like...
It was better to keep it short than draw it out.
Yeah.
Even though they were finally like, oh, wait, you care about her, she's gone.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I was like, no, fuck you guys. All of you. Get out of here.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It was and you can actually, like, it's kind of interesting because you can see the change you can sort of see the change that it would have had through Melisandre.
Right.
Who also at some point realizes, hey, maybe I shouldn't have burned that child alive.
Yeah.
But it was like Melisandre survived long enough to have that arc, and
I can still do without Melisandre, as it turns out.
arguably, she shouldn't have survived long enough to see how that arc would go.
Get her out of here.
But yeah.
But here we are. So yeah. So those are all of our, like, indicator thumbnail ideas for when you should be looking to remove a character from the equation.
Yes.
So, part 3, we're gonna move right along to that, which is leaving on a high or an appropriate note.
Yes.
So
So
if you're...
unfortunately, they can't all be high notes.
Unfortunately. So if your motivation for getting rid of a character or parting ways with them for the time being is solid, then you have a solid foundation, and hopefully the rest will come naturally. But it wouldn't be much of an advice podcast if we didn't send you off blindly. If we just sent you off blindly. We could send you off blindly. We're done!
Bye, guys!
That's the end of the podcast.
This has been Unsolicited.
So, here are some basics of what you should know.
Yes. So the most important thing that you can do is you can match the tone. If your character is choosing to leave because they've learned something or went their own way, let that moment be really empowering. But if you just killed off, like, a love interest, or if you just killed off a close friend, you don't want that to be... You probably want that to be less of an empowering tone and more of, like, you want your audience to hate you and be sad and cry and, like, curse at you kind of a tone.
Right.
So, if... commit to what you want to achieve, and then, like, just be prepared for people to be mad, I guess.
Sometimes...
Follow through.
Sometimes people gotta be mad at you. And then our second point that we have here is to justify your motivation. If you have a reason for sending a character off, and for how you're doing it, make sure the characters have a reasonable motivation for sending the departure into motion.
Yeah.
So this is like with you going back to your last point with Celise. The idea that she killed herself makes sense because we got to see that she suddenly had a change of heart, and burned her only daughter alive.
Yeah.
Despite realizing what she had done was wrong. So that's it's that sort of thing where you it has to be understandable. I mean, there are also things there's like mysteries and stuff like that, which is different because that's an entire genre of murder mysteries. It's an entire genre in and of itself.
Right.
But like, so if you're in the case of not a murder mystery, if somebody dies and it's, we sort of get more insight into it, that insight should include some sort of motivation.
Yeah.
There.
So, and like, if it's a murder, you want to motivate the murderer. If it's someone choosing to leave, you want to make sure that they would leave the situation.
Right.
Because, like, notice Stannis, even after he made a mistake and then his wife died,
right,
he saw everything through to the end, even though he knew it was a lost cause. He, like, and you can see him make that decision before he goes on. He's like, I've lost the war, and he goes and fights it anyway. Because, like, some characters will fight to the end.
Right.
It wouldn't have made any sense if Stannis had just been like,
I'm done,
guys.
Bye.
Like, it would have been bad.
Right. It just wouldn't have matched everything we've known about this character so far.
So take your character's personality into consideration when choosing justification for stuff. Because what might make sense to you or to some of the other characters might not make sense to them.
Right. So here I'm going to talk about Coin on this section of the podcast. Because it really comes into the justifying the motivation. So as I said in the pre-show, I retired my D&D character. And sort of this whole thing he's been building up is learning to be a better person. Because for a lot of his life he's considered himself on his own. Because he's always had his sister there for a while, but like before the campaign started, they'd been separated for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And Coin has sort of come to this point where he's like, I don't need anyone else. I don't need to take care of anyone else. If I can take care of myself, I can get by and make it through. So we actually just had a really big fight we had a really big dragon boss fight that we just did. Which put them in a really good position, because because Coin and Vera and whoever else in the party chooses to be are technically the lords and ladies of it, because they took over the area from the dragon after extensive damage was taken among the party. They ended up in a really good spot, and Coin had gotten rich, which is always been, if you can imagine, on Coin's mind, is getting rich and having a lot of stuff and being able to live comfortably. So then, while they were traveling, one of their companions died for a second time. She's not good at staying alive, apparently.
Hard.
Apparently it is.
We're bad at it.
I wouldn't know. I haven't died. I didn't die. But now he's...
No,
he didn't. Stop that. But so, in a hasty summary of events, they had to take drastic measures to get to a doctor. And they did, except they accidentally teleported into the middle of a bunch of royal guards, and they all got arrested. So, by the time everyone in the party got there, everyone was arrested on different criminal charges that had them. Some of them were free to go, but others were faced with jail time or being sent back to places that were bad for them specifically, where they could be executed, and it was just bad all around. So, sort of the completion of Coin's character arc was him coming to terms with, these people have changed my life for the better. I couldn't have done this all on my own. I couldn't have gotten here. And I care about them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do something selfless to make their lives better. So he ended up giving up himself to clear everyone of their charges. Which maybe didn't happen for his sister. I don't know what you and our DM discussed while I was out of the room specifically.
Yeah. Vera's always got stuff going on.
She could start a fucking international incident.
That sounds like something that, like, the British would call a war.
The what?
Like an international incident.
An international...
Say it in, like, a British accent, though.
An international incident. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
What was that face you gave me?
That's my I'm smug about British idioms.
You know that cat picture with the cat that's looking up and it's got the knife pointed at it? That's the face you were making.
That's the face that I was feeling.
In your heart of hearts. But yeah, so, I really had that justifiable motive for letting Coin go because it was... Because I wanted Coin to go out on a heroic note. Because he did start off having very rough relations with the party.
Yeah.
But, you know, he sort of became a whole different person throughout the adventure. And I think being able to be a hero without being a killer was sort of... It was a good note for him to end on.
Yeah.
I love Coin. He will be back in my next D&D campaign as an NPC.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah.
Nice. Do you want to plug your D&D campaign real fast?
My D&D
We're on shameless project plugs.
My D&D campaign, which I will not be recording because it's with my coworkers. Ex-coworkers. With some friends. I'm doing like a fairy tale Borderlands D&D campaign. I'm really excited about it. I have lots of characters. I would like to draw them for people. Nice. I will maybe do some time lapses of them because they're pretty swell, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you? Do you have any shameless projects to plug?
Well, I plug it every week, but I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right in. I'm working on the Adventures collaboration. Adventures
Yay!
over on Stupid Export. Listen to it. It's not weird at all. Considering it was super weird, though, it actually is kind of a good... Because, again, there are, like, NPC deaths. There are NPC farewells. There are
many...
An alarming number of NPC farewells, and it's
there
fun.
There are many NPCs.
Because in, like, the podcast, the justification for all of those was Nat 1, and in the book... Nat 1 is not an acceptable justification for... So, it's been interesting going back and figuring out motivations behind things that were Nat 1s.
Right.
A lot of which have been character goodbyes. Cough, cough. Blurbird's brother.
Blurber. But yeah, it's exciting because we were actually getting close to the finale of V1.
Yeah.
Actually, it's getting up there. I think we're getting real close to one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think the Prison Break episode's coming up soon.
Yes!
Which is
yes.
one of arguably my favorite episodes. It is so good. I'm so excited for people to hear it. I can't wait for everyone to experience the foghorn together.
It's gonna be good, you guys.
If you can make out anything through our hysterical laughter, Ben was just on a fucking roll that session. If you ever want NPCs, go over to Stupid Export and ask for them. Give them some letters, and maybe you'll end up...
we're just volunteering those guys to hand out NPCs.
Listen, Ben wanted to name NPCs in my D&D campaign. I told him no. But listen, you too could... I'm shamelessly plugging Ben's services as an NPC name generator.
Oh, they're great.
You can end up with your own character named Rapscal, but with 3 L's. Or Mother Fart.
Yep.
Yeah. You could end up with any of these potential names.
If you can also ask for descriptions, I don't know if he'll give them to you, because sometimes he flat out doesn't, but if you can
Sometimes
get them...
they rhyme.
Sometimes they rhyme. Sometimes you get great adventures quotes, like a bunch of Shakespeare-looking fucks. Which honestly might be my goddamn favorite line from anything. I love that.
It's great.
As a description, doesn't get better than that.
Doesn't get better than that. Though, secretly handles ice cream is a pretty good unintentional one.
Yeah.
Because that's an NPC.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm supporting Ben's new NPC generator as a person. That's what I'm doing.
I'm supporting the reaction to this.
I'm sure he'll be thrilled.
It's gonna be good. And that brings us to our recommendations.
Stupid export. Go over there.
Yeah, do that. Watch Game of Thrones.
You say this every week.
I'm gonna say it for at least, oh god, I was gonna say at least 4 more weeks, but then I'm also gonna be saying it through the show.
Yeah, a long time.
You've
been saying it since we started this podcast.
I'm going to say it every week until the ice spiders show up. In which case I will retroactively say, don't ever watch Game of Thrones, what a goddamn waste of time.
You are really not behind the ice spiders.
I'm anticipating not liking ice spiders. That might or might not be there. If I knew for sure they were going to be there, I'd stop recommending it right now. But until proven guilty, until proven ice spider, watch Game of Thrones.
Jesus. Dear Lord.
Yeah.
I want them.
And Doctor Who. Watch Doctor Who.
Doctor Who?
It's got a lot of goodbyes. It's got a lot of good, well-written, unconventional goodbyes.
But maybe don't watch the Stephen Moffat seasons.
Yeah. Maybe watch Doctor Who up through the 10th Doctor.
Right, because nobody likes Moffat, because he's bad.
Yeah.
My recommendations, I'm gonna recommend Full Metal Alchemist. Do you want to cry? You should. Lots of goodbyes.
You should cry or you should want to.
Full Metal Alchemist! It's sad, but it's good, and it has some really cool fight sequences. Mace Hughes is dead, and you'll watch it over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll also throw a little recommendation in there for One Piece. One Piece has also got some real solid goodbyes. Also got some real solid cry moments. There are some there's one particularly very impactful death that I was warned and knew about and have seen and heard about countlessly, and then I saw it and I still wasn't prepared.
How terrible would it be if it was Maze Hughes? Like,
anytime
you watch any anime, like, you know going in that Maze Hughes is going to die. That's the price of watching anime. I'm just gonna start editing Maze Hughes' funeral into other animes.
It's goddamn the Marineford arc. And it kind of goes to Punch Luffy, and then Maze Hughes is dead.
That's everyone.
I was ready for that one.
Everyone, check out my new YouTube channel. Maze Hughes dies at the end.
You have any idea how many views you would get?
I'm gonna do
so many.
Bye, guys. This is my last episode of the podcast.
God damn it! Now I'm all alone, and I'm crying. I'm so sorry.
We give out 1 complimentary box of tissues when you sign up to my new show.
Oh, very nice. I could use them. I could also use them for my fucking cat. Because she sneezes everywhere. Maybe because she's crying on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
She's a big Maze Hughes fan.
She is. If I looked at Lady,
yeah,
I would immediately think Maze Hughes fan.
Oh, yeah. She's got that Maze Hughes fan face.
Her face is squished. like a little pancake.
It's squished under the weight of all the love for Maze Hughes.
It's squished under the weight of her love. We have to leave.
Yeah.
This has gotten wildly out of control, and Harley's gonna break down the door any moment.
That's fair.
So this has been Unsolicited Advice. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And we'll see you next time. I'm not crying, you're crying. You're so sad. You, not me.